Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever wanted to get what you truly want, then do we have the Ask Show for you. Today I'll be talking with Mark Victor Hansen, the #1 New York Times best-selling author of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series, and Dwyer Hansen about their latest book on transforming your life, Ask. And that's just what I want to talk with them about today, about the bridge from your dreams to your destiny and how to ask the universe. That, plus we'll talk about a Suzuki motorcycle and high school, food stamps and a 2-year-old, what in the world is the first supper, how to save McDowell Preserve, surviving on $500 million, and what in the world cruises and bingo has to do with anything. So welcome to the show, Mark and Crystal. Are you both ready to shine?
Yes, we are so ready. And I love all those little points you brought out from the book. Every one of them is special.
We are radiant and effervescent and ebullient. How's that?
Even better than I possibly ever could have said it. So on that note, before we dive right into things, Mark, how did you first ask Crystal out?
That is a magnificent story. What happens is that her mother sent her to a seminar called Author 101 in LA.
Yep.
I was the keynote, and I obviously spotted her. I had been divorced for a long time, and I asked about her, and she was divorced. I thought, oh, boy, this is great. And then that night, I'm in the VIP room, and she's way on the other side, and I've got a throng of people around me. But somebody inadvertently hit a glass of wine all over her white pants. I broke through my crowd, went over, grabbed her hand, and said, I think I know where the club soda is. Can I take you out here, and we'll take care of that? And then I invited her to dinner. I said, are you as hungry as I am? It's 9:30. And she said, yeah. I said, well, I can't stay on this property because there are 1,000 people that want 2 minutes with me. With your permission, I would like to take you off site. Long story short, we get to this place and there's another long line. And I thought, oh my gosh, $100 bill won't get us in. But because, we're teaching asking, I asked the guy, we go up and smile, and he saw her radiant movie star-like beauty, and pulchritudinous just emanates out of every pore of the wisdom of my wife. And the guy says, okay, I give up. Who is she? And because I asked questions, Michael, I said, you don't recognize her? Now his mind's on steroids going through People magazine and InStyle. He says, no. I said, I'm joking, but I said, we're both of Danish descent. I said, she's a queen of Denmark. And he started by saying, no, she's not. And he leans back and he says, oh my gosh, she is. Who are you? Who travels with a queen? And that's how we got together.
And how much did you pay the person to spill the wine?
It's so funny because we met up with that woman at another big seminar we were giving years later after we'd come together. And she said, I think I'm the one who's responsible for you two coming together. I spilled the wine. She was from South America,
El Salvador.
And she was so excited about that. And I said, oh, my goodness, you're exactly right. That was his breakthrough moment to come and grab my hand and be my white knight in shining armor.
I love it. There's each day I do a daily download or a little bit of wisdom on YouTube. And the theme I got this morning, because I do automatic writing, a process, we've written a book on it coming out in a few weeks, in fact. But the theme I got today was God is. Meaning that there is nowhere that God is not. And so God was present in the spilling of the wine, wasn't he?
100%. Not just that, Michael. My mother, I didn't know about this event coming up. My mom called me one day and said, she knew I was writing this book. I was having breakthrough success as a transformational life coach in my practice. People were just having amazing results. So I was writing a book about it. She calls me up and says, I just got this email. It's called, there's this event happening, Author 101. It's in LA. You have to go. And I said, when is it, Mom? She goes, it's the day after tomorrow. I go, oh, I'm sure it's sold out, So, she said, you have to go. And Mark Victor Hansen will be there. And I was like, oh, whoa, Mom. And then I asked her when it was. Day after tomorrow. I said, oh, I'm sure it's sold out. She goes, just call him right now. I'll watch the kids for you, because I'd been recently divorced. And I'm thinking, I can't do this. It's a day and a half. I've got too much to do. Call. And within 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes, the promoter, the owner of the conference, called me back, Rick Frischman. That never happens. Not his assistant or secretary. He called me back and said, you have to come. We're not sold out. I'm like, okay, Rick, I guess I'm coming. So a day and a half later, I'm at that event, kind of going, how did I end up here? But I knew, I sort of had that buzz when I got there that this was happening a little bit beyond my control. And I just had to stay in the wonder of it.
How did you find, both of you individually and together, the importance of ask, but how did you become brave enough to ask. I know when I met my wife, Jessica, I saw her in a Buddhist meditation center. She's sitting down, and I knew that she was the one. And so I deliberately didn't ask. I was so nervous many years ago that I'm like, if I say anything, I might blow it. I'm going to wait for the universe to bring us together.
Well, first of all, I want to go back to the bigger question you asked about, or your theme of today is God is. And God is everywhere, always, and forever. And what happens is that when you're in right usefulness and asking the right questions in your mind, and I wrote down 267 things I needed in my ideal woman. We had the same spiritual values because of today's show. General values. She had to have her own money. I don't want somebody marrying me for my wallet because I sold 500 million books. All those kind of things. She had to be charismatic. She had a love to travel, which obviously because of COVID and universe's incarceration, we couldn't do anything, but that kind of stuff. So, universe will synchronize you when you ask yourself the right question. You'll do the right thinking to get the right result right here and right now. And as for your question about your wife, you obviously got to her. So your inner knower knew how to get there. Your higher self, I would call it.
Yes. And I agree. And I didn't have 260 things down, 267. I had 10 things down that I repeated and asked for each evening. The most dangerous one, because it's be careful what you wish for or what you ask for, was help me to find someone who can help me to be even more of who I'm capable of being. And so I got, as I'm sure you did, Mark, a teacher version of a wife.
When the student's ready, the teacher appears, and most people say, well, wait a second. You're almost 60, so what are you doing, finding a teacher? Isn't that a little late? But there is, in universe and in God's time, which is eternal time, there is no time. So you and I got exactly what we wanted, and writing it down. And the second thing, because in our book, we say you got to ask yourself, ask others, and ask God. You asked yourself, you had 10 things you suggested to us. I'm saying that because you repeated that, what we're saying is before you go to sleep at night, for most people listening, they don't know their destiny because we ask everybody, what do you want? And they go, and stutter. They don't have a clear. So we're saying you got to ask God, what's your destiny for me? God, what's your destiny for me? Now that has a lot of iteration. God, what's your destiny for me with the right woman or the right man or the right person for me? Or God, what's your destiny for me for my right livelihood or my work or my occupation? Or what am I to do? God, what do you want me to do next? And all of us can go, but you can only do it with what you just said. You repeated it, permeate, penetrate, fill the inner spaces of those 18 billion or more brain cells, and it wakes up your inner knower. Would you agree with that?
I would agree completely. And there's a key here, which really gets at the crux of things today, because what we're talking about is how to ask God, but we're talking about how to ask God about our destiny. Because you're talking about your bridge to your destiny, which means that if you ask, so I'm guessing you did not get every single one of those 267 things. You had to have your hands open to whatever may arise so that something even better than you could have possibly imagined would show up.
Well, first of all, I got 267 out of 267. I did not tell her until after we got married. And I believe, and I've taught for everybody, as you know, I've written 312 books, and I wrote my first book called Future Diary, and we sold the bejesus out of it out there in Palm Springs. I went on a little TV show when I was 26 years or 27 years old and sold 7,000 a week. The point is I not only got everything I wanted, but I got more, because I say that when you hit a goal, you don't cross out like milk, eggs, and butter. You write now God's highest color, purple, which I'm wearing just for you today because it's the top of the rainbow, as you know. And then you go back, because all of our lives pulsate. That's true. But I got more than I expected, because if you will load your desire list, right, in the Christian model, it's seek ye first the kingdom of awareness, kingdom of self-growth, self-development, all things will be added onto you. And so I got way more than I expected. She is the most magnificent. She is a master teacher. How's that?
I like it. So for both of you, what does destiny really mean, and what does it mean that we want to ask for our destiny? What's your destiny for me?
So for me, what it means is that I am fulfilling my greatest expression each and every day, the greatest expression for which God made me. And we each have that. And I don't think we ever stop to take the time to contemplate that. You were made so perfectly, so beautifully, so uniquely. So each day that you wake up, are you expressing that which you were made in its fullest. And I think that is your destiny. And your destiny isn't just one final spot. Your destiny is an unfoldment of that beautiful expression of the greatest you.
Thank you. And it begets several questions here. I think part of the challenge here is that we don't know how to ask big enough questions. One of my favorite movies is Moneyball, because they're there with the Oakland A's. The Oakland A's have been stripped of all their star players. They have no money to field a new team. They're trying to do it the old way. And basically, the team manager clears the table and says, stop. We're not asking the right questions.
By the way, what you just said is correct, and as you may know because you've read my Vita, I've got one of the best-selling set tapes of all times. I don't know if it still is, but How to Think Bigger Than You Ever Thought You Could Think. Because the problem for most of us, we think too, if I could just get a job, or if I could just get a date, or if I could just do this, or if I could just get to church or temple or synagogue or ashbang or mosque or whatever it is for your spiritual dominion, or if I could just get a guru, right, a self-realized person. But my point, I think yours on the show, is every one of us is supposed to become our own guru at some level. Read all the spiritual literature of all dimensionality. And I was a student ambassador to India, so I did get to go to all the top ashrams, and I get to study in Madras at the Theosophical Society. So I've been through the whole litany of stuff, loved every minute of it. But every one of us is supposed to have, the Maslow's hierarchy is you go to self-actualization, but above that is self-realization, where you go to truth and beauty. And I'm going to add one other thing that Maslow didn't do, and I'll add wisdom, which is what your show is about. Because when you understand God is infinite wisdom. If you and I are made in the image and likeness of God, then we're supposed to touch the hem of that garment. And I've never said this before. This sounds good to me even. And expand that.
I like that. Touch the hem of his garment. And you'll realize that you are wearing that garment because you are he.
That's it.
God in you. Exactly. And I want to say back to what you were saying, can we ask the wrong questions? Well, people are asking the wrong questions all the time, every day. So we need to listen to ourselves and pay attention to the way we ask questions. And, so many people are saying, what if I get sick? What if I die from this? What if I get COVID? What if I lose my business? What if I lose everything? And when those are negative affirmations, okay, those questions will create your reality, because every time you ask a question, you're seeking for that answer. And that's the wrong direction. You want to make sure that when you ask your question, starting with the asking yourself part, you're asking in the most positive way. And we say that there are 3 critical phases to the ask yourself part. And that is, where am I now? Mm-hmm. Because we need to really understand where we are now, and all the little sub questions that come under, where am I now? Am I loving my life? Am I enjoying my life? Am I expressing my best? What's working? What's not working, right? Truing it up with ourselves and understanding where we are at this point, because we can't figure out how to go forward until we understand where we are. And the second phase of that is, where do I want to be, right? And so many people fail to get in touch with their heart and mind and their greatest imagination of their life. Mark and I say, start with your greatest imagination of your perfect life and ask backwards how you got there. So in this perfect version of the nth degree of my most amazing career, who am I talking to every day? What's important to me? Who's listening to who's buying my services, my products? How much are they enjoying them, and why? How is that making a difference in their life, in my life? In that way, if you start with the nth degree of your most amazing life, with this beautiful imagination we have that the Creator gave us, because we're created in the Creator's image. We're the only animal who can imagine anything into existence. And every good thing that's ever come into this world started in someone's imagination. So we say, start those questions with imagining your nth degree of success in your career, your relationships, your health and wellness, and your life purpose.
Thank you. I'm trying to figure out the best way to phrase this. And I've been challenging people lately, and I've been challenged myself to look through the eyes of the person like you would like to be. And I say that because we often have a mental block to how great we can be. And so if we can find somebody and put ourselves from behind their eyes, so like I've got our next book coming out. I certainly would like to sell 500 million copies of our book if it's meant to help the world. So it maybe is that I put myself looking through Mark's eyes at the world as a self-actualized individual as well and see what the world looks like. Is that a great technique, or what would you think is a fantastic technique to leap beyond the subconscious mind, which can't actually think that big because it hasn't felt or experienced that before?
First of all, you are absolutely spot on. When we did that, I wrote the book that was #1 for a long time called 1 Minute Millionaire, where my goal was to create 1 million millionaires. I said there's one right, perfect, easy, acceptable way to each and every one of us. And the first thing we taught is that you put on the headset of whoever you want to be. And at the time, I said, boy, wouldn't it be nice to think of the eye set of a Richard Branson, right? Because and it turns out we ended up spending, Richard immediately after we did that, called us, said, hey, come spend a week with us down at Necker Island with us, meaning that him and his team. And it was so magnificent and fun. But what I'm saying is that's one issue, and I'm agreeing with that. You take yourself, remember, ask yourself, ask others, ask God are three things. First of all, go as high as you can go, Michael. Then number two is, how is the person that's closest in modeling to what you want to do? And if I'm I've never had anyone say that to me before, so I'm very thankful.
I never thought that before. But there's a synchrony here. It feels great.
It does, and thank you for that. And I will try to be worthy of it. And then number three is something that I got to do a lot of the big, what are called mega churches. I'm out in Detroit with a guy, Dr. Jack Boland, who's now passed away, but he had a giant 5,000 people per service, 3 services a Sunday, so 15,000 every Sunday. I talked there once a year. It was September to remember myself, I Mendino, Les Brown, a few of us. But he always said before we could go out on stage, we were in what's called the green room. He says, I want to have you look through the eye. God, I got goosebumps telling you what I'm about to tell you. I've never shared this anywhere, including with my wife, so it's really good. I got to do it more. He said, take your mind and look through the eyes of God at everyone in the audience and just give them dollops of love. And you really go into an altered state of consciousness. And I hope it's not too high for your audience to hear that.
No, I don't think so. I do think that subconscious can get in the way. The big question that comes up, and when we were talking about, Crystal was talking about questions not to ask, it's a very interesting question, dangerous question. Who am I to? Who am I to ask such a lofty question?
Right.
Who am I to put myself in the eyes of God?
Right. I think that really goes back to what we write about in the book is the 7 roadblocks to success. Because everyone we interviewed, everyone we met, people live with these roadblocks. They're afraid to ask. They're unworthy to ask. They're ashamed that they don't already know everything. And that's a really sad state, Michael, because we start out as children, so beautiful, so uncorrupted, so willing to ask who, what, when, where, why, and ask for more of this beautiful universe that we're learning about every day. And because we ask, we learn. Because we ask, we evolve. Because we ask, we grow. And then at some point, through schooling, parenting, the way, the jobs we've had, just life rejection, we get to the point where all of a sudden we stop asking. That beautiful natural ability to ask, it's crushed out of us. And now we're scared. We're fearful of rejection. We're afraid to lose love. We're afraid of, we have this sense of unworthiness, which is one of the roadblocks. Fear is another one of the roadblocks. And it's all this conditioning that happens from our childhood forward. And so Mark and I are saying, read this book and recognize what it is in you. What roadblocks do you carry that I know are there? Because so many people, we carry at least one, if not more, of these roadblocks.
I can remember when I was sent back to kindergarten in first grade for asking too many questions. I remember that specific day. I remember the day we're driving along in my dad's little Mazda rotary engine car, and the heating gauge goes on saying the engine's getting hot. And I'm asking questions of my parents, and my mom said, no more questions. And I'm like, but you had told me always ask questions. And she said, not anymore.
Sorry, I just want to congratulate you and give you a metaphorical pat on the back on both questions. One, for getting sent back for asking questions. Do you understand that is the antithesis of what real education is, to draw out, not stuff in? Meaning that you go to university or your high school or elementary school and they say, you'll sit there, you'll shut up, you'll listen, I'm going to teach you the wisdom of the world. No, you can teach me the alphabet, but let me read and be wise and then ask you questions. And let's have the interaction, which is what the Socratic method is all about, which is why we love this whole asking journey, and what you're doing is wonderful.
Right. And what the saddest thing about what you just described, Michael, and this is what has happened to many of us over and over again, that beautiful ability that you had to ask, that natural drive to evolve and to know everything in your life experience, right? You were made to feel ashamed. People were put off, the people that you loved and trusted the most. And so that continues to erode our confidence in ourselves. And that's what we need to get back. We need to recognize those things happened, but we need to bring it back to life. And by doing that, we start to reconnect with our world, reconnect with our potential, reconnect with people. Asking is the greatest form of bonding between two people that exists.
Thank you. And you have 7 of them here. You have everything from unworthiness, naivete, doubt, excuses, fear, pattern paralysis, disconnection. But maybe where we should start with this is, and I didn't expect to be asking it this way, but how do we resuscitate the ask?
There are a lot of processes in the book. We give you a lot of questions. Part of it, the first step is recognition. When you read about these and you read people's stories and the examples of these stories are metaphors for our own lives, and our brain, thinks in patterns. So the minute we recognize a pattern, we learn from it almost instantly. And in that way, we can also become empowered by other people's journeys. When we recognize it, we realize that is the way I've been. That's what happened to me. And that isn't acceptable. And I don't want to be like that anymore. And so the minute you start to get all of this awareness by reading these lessons, the stories, the question examples, it is like this, imagine that you've come to a dead end in the road and there's no way out, and there's nowhere else to go. And suddenly you look up and this huge gate opens that you didn't even notice was there because it was so grown over. That's what this is like. It starts to open the gate to your awareness and understanding and gives you real tools to start implementing this journey so you can become a master asker.
May I add one thing?
Please? Absolutely.
Yeah. So yours is our 114th podcast since the book came out April 28th, because our publisher called up and said, COVID, do you want to push it back 2 weeks or into the fall? And I said, no, I take adversity, turn it into advantage with asking. So we're going to ask for it and figure out how to sell more books than anybody's ever sold again. And I think this is going to outsell my whole Chicken Soup for the Soul series, which, as you know, and did the numbers already, 500 million. The point here is that you can ask your way out. But what we're seeing now, because we're getting so many letters, one day she went through 121 letters that we got, is that people are buying not one book, but 3. One for themselves, one for whoever their partner is. And that could be a spouse or spouse equivalent. It could be their mastermind partner, their spiritual partner, could be their business partner. And what they're doing, Michael, which astounded us, because they came to us with it and said, hey, look, we went through every question in the book, and you guys said, figure out what you want, and then just keep writing it down, both of you, and then talking it through. And what they're doing is they're having a spiritual breakthrough, because here's what's happened. My metaphor, our corporation is a butterfly, but everybody starts as a caterpillar, and now we've been in this chrysalis for almost a year, right? And the way to break out of it, we think, is you don't get what you deserve, you get what you ask for, and you ask your way out of this chrysalis by knowing who you are. So the 3 books, one for you, one for your partner, whoever he or she is, and then one for the library. And the reason that people are doing a library is libraries are broken and been shut down, but they want our books and they can't afford to do them. So people are saying, hey, wait a second, I'll give one to the library. And if everyone did that, pretty soon 16,000 libraries would have them.
I love it. And as a synchronicity, our first logo, when I had my first business, it was called the Creative Learning Institute. It was for students and adults with learning disabilities and attention deficit disorder, and the logo was a purple butterfly.
Oh my
God. By the way, one of our 5 kids is a special ed teacher, and I just to brag about her, last year while school really worked, like she was here with us yesterday, but she had 15 kids in the morning and 15, 4 and 5 and 6-year-olds in the afternoon. She found in each class 4 that weren't slow, they were accelerated, but the parents and the rest of school didn't read it right, didn't test it right, and they're reading at 5th and 6th grade levels at 4 and 5 years old. It's amazing how many people forgive me for using this term, but squandered, wasted, discarded, thrown off. We think there's no such, and I know you're essential or non-essential if you're listening to our government, but I think that's an asinine quote. I'm really on my pulpit here. We think everybody's essential, and I think you and this show think that.
Thank you. So I'm gonna dive back from there. I'm gonna dive back to story because, like you said, story tells the most. And Crystal, you were saying about that there's a point in your life where you say no more. I'm not gonna take it anymore. I call that point the no mas point. And there's a point where you have stamps. You have food stamps, and you are with a 2-year-old in the grocery store. And I think you hit your no mas moment.
I really did, Michael. It was really crazy because I was one of those kids who found high school to be easy and a little bit boring. So I accelerated my curriculum and I graduated at age 16 and married my boyfriend who was 5 years older. Not a great life plan. 2.5 years later, we ended up, I'm divorced in a new city, no family, no friends, no idea how I'm going to support myself and my little boy. And so I did the first thing I could think of was get some food stamps. So I was standing in that line that day, and in that moment where I was about to hand those food stamps over, I had this gigantic epiphany and saw myself from outside of myself. And in that moment, it was literally like a light was shining on my head and a question dropped into my mind. First, it was, how did you get here? Mm-hmm. Followed by a second question, are you doing everything you can to get out of this situation, or are you taking the easy way out? And I knew in that moment, it was like, busted. I am taking the easy way out. I really was. I knew when I answered that question, honestly, I wasn't doing everything I could. So it caused such a pivot in my heart and soul and mind. And I really think I had a fierce look on my face. I don't know, but that it was so intense, the feeling that I was having. So I went back to my apartment where I was getting eviction notices every month. Yeah. And I didn't really have any answers, but I realized I have questions. So I just started asking, like, who would hire me tomorrow? What can I do? What am I good at? Fortunately, I had worked through high school. I worked at a clothing store. I worked in my dad's law offices, did a bunch of things. I worked at Taco Time when I was 14, said I was 15 on my application because you needed to be 15. But
I was 16 since the age of 12, for that matter.
Right? A year and a half later from that moment. Well, in the meantime, I went home and I asked myself, where do I work? I had been hearing about on the radio temporary service agencies like Kelly Girls. I called them up. I said, how do I apply? They said, fill out the paperwork. We'll call you. We'll give you jobs every day. I started taking these odd jobs. I was working in attorneys' offices, filling in. I was, working when conventions would come through town, doing sales, working at setting up booths at malls, things like that. Yeah. And I started actually liking it a lot. And I love working with people. I love sales, especially, and decided at that point to put myself through real estate school. In the meantime, someone had approached me and said, you should go do some modeling. So I thought, I have nothing to lose. I'll go ask the agency to sign me. And I had no idea what I was doing, but fortunately they listened and they said, okay. And I ended up doing a couple of commercials that went national. So literally a year and a half from that time that I was turning over the food stamps and sliding into my own pity, my entire life pivoted. I'm now working for the top home builder in my valley. I became the #1 realtor for my company, and I'm getting this residual income, which has the best benefits through Screen Actors Guild, like the best insurance benefits you could get for myself and my son. And it was such a life change for me that I couldn't help look back on that often and say, wow, what caused that? I was taking this slide downward. And, I could have easily slid further if I had, embraced my pity, embraced my victimization. And I'm so thankful that I had the ability or the insight to ask myself that tough question. And I think a lot of times we do need to ask ourselves the tough questions. And we need to also have the courage to answer those questions honestly.
Thank you. In fact, that begets an important question. What exactly are holding up the mirror questions? Because these are hard to ask questions, but I think can completely change, well, everything is destiny, but can completely alter the direction toward our destiny.
Right. It's the questions like, am I doing the best I can, or am I taking the easy way out, right? Am I able to challenge the norms and see my life differently? It's really looking at your life and asking those questions around it, questioning it, hold it up in the mirror and say, am I kidding myself about this, or is it really working? And what is working? What's not working? am I creating this problem, or is it really my creation, or is it the person I'm blaming? Those are holding up the mirror questions, those gut honest questions. So many of us blame this, blame that, blame everything. Is it that, or is it me? Is there something I could be doing that would make the most drastic change in regards to this situation or issue?
Thank you. Mark, what kind of ask would you challenge somebody who is watching this, is listening to this, but doesn't have maybe it's even difficult to, I don't even know how to say it. There are so many people listening who treat these shows as chewing gum and will take it all in and will never step forward. Is there a question you can challenge them with? I go with the if not now, that when. There's got to be something more powerful, though, to actually get them to drink the Kool-Aid.
We did the last chapter, the biggest questions ever asked, and I'll just do one that I would like everyone to let go deep into their inner being, and it's done by a brilliant guy who I've met a couple of times, Dr. Peter Demandis, and he says, what is it you're going to do to positively affect 1 billion, that's spelled with a B, 1 billion people? What is it you're going to do to positively affect 1 billion people in this decade? All of us that are listening, if you're taking good care of yourself, are going to be alive for a decade. And you're either going to do something or nothing. And back to your earlier question about my thinking big, if you're going to think big, why not think big? And my goal has always been to sell 1 billion books. And you can go online and look at all my detractors and critics. But look, I'm halfway there, and I'm going to live to be 127th options for renewal. So, and I think that's just minor because we're in magnificent health, and that's the goal, is that everyone's got to keep their immune system well. But if you'll ask yourself a question, it's a breakthrough question. It doesn't matter if you're a lineman for the electric company, the utility company. It doesn't matter whether you're a doctor, a lawyer, a priest, a minister, or a janitor. You can do something great that positively could affect 1 billion people. And you can do the simplest things, like when one of the first success books was written, back in the old days during the time of Abe Lincoln. This guy was out touring, and the guy who built Temple University, Dr. Russell Conwell, and this woman heard him, and she was pinning papers together, and there's ink spilled all over the papers of Abe Lincoln. She said, there's got to be a better way. She invented the paperclip. And if you go downtown Philadelphia, there's a 6-story paperclip dedicated to that woman's one little thing. And she made herself worth a fortune by inventing the paperclip. Every one of us, because I teach entrepreneurship in our Ask book, the question I ask is, an entrepreneur is defined as somebody who finds a problem, fixes it, scales it, and makes a vast profit, because we're here to serve greatly, every one of us.
And it seems to me that is a huge amplifier. Years ago, I got my Twitter account. It was, the population was a lot smaller then. Inspire 7 billion. I had to go big with the B in there.
I love that.
Good. Let me just hit on one other little thing. I got to meet the guy who makes $2 billion a year that created dental floss. He's a dentist. And you go, wait a second. There's not been a day in your life that you didn't know probably from 3 or 4 years old, didn't know what a piece of string was. Now, you may not have thought of putting it through your teeth and then putting wax on it, but this is about as simple an idea as you can get. Or the yellow Post-its with Arthur Fry, who's made himself worth $2 billion. The point is, every one of us has got it, and most people go, well, it's easy for you guys. You guys are media mavens, and you can get out there. No, everybody has got something great to do. That's what Crystal was saying, and that includes everybody that's special ed that you're bringing forth, because they've got genius in it. I mean, at one time, the smartest man in the world, the guy who just passed away, Stephen Hawking's, Dr. Hawking's, if he didn't have the technology, we wouldn't have known he was the smartest guy on the planet.
So too, I call it hyper creative minds.
Right.
You just hit on something that's so important when you were saying about, well, we're gonna go back to being a granter of wishes, because that is so exceptionally important. But before we do that, what you're talking about, and going back to what Krista was saying earlier, is not only looking at the world with childlike, not childish eyes, but being able to ask like a child again. The child, when they have the, parent-teacher conference or what career you want to be, and says, I want to be an astronaut, They're not going, oh, well, the odds are that only so many people are going to get through school here, and there's so many people are going to get through that program, and then I got to deal with the politics, and then there's the this. No, they just want to be an astronaut. And guess what? Some of them will, because they're asking like a child.
I think both of us want to respond to this, so I'll be real quick. We just had a call with a guy who says, I really want to go to the Mars with now the richest man in the world today became Elon Musk. But the fact of the matter is, every one of us needs to rekindle those dreams by asking and saying, what is, what the thing I said to you, you go 400 times, God, what is your destiny for me? God, what is your destiny for me? Because I believe we were pre-coded before we came here to have in our DNA and RNA a coding that said, this is your destiny. Now, I believe my destiny is to be a great communicator as a speaker and a writer and in a business inspirer. I'm here to be an evocateur, a gadfly, a catalyst to somebody's success.
And Crystal, you had something to say before I add into that.
No, I was just going to say what you said about asking like a child we talk about in the book. When children ask like that, they ask with full imagination. And you, like you were saying, no withholds. Their imaginations fully see themselves in that role doing it. That's why they dress the part, and they don't think for 1 second they can't do that. So, one of the techniques we really need to consider as we're taking this asking journey, that's why we put it in there, is to become like a child. And, in those moments, go into that beautiful imagination that you still have. You just need to use it in the right way and play with that a little bit. Be more playful about your ultimate expression, because the only one who's stopping you from achieving everything you want is you. That is the truth.
May I add one more thing, Michael?
Please.
Just hitchhiking on Crystal. In our blended family, we have 5 kids and 6 grandkids. We got grand twins, which we love all our grandkids, but this one little girl is Madeline, 6 years old. Mm-hmm. 2 things. One is she just made a little book. She folded out a paper, didn't tell her parents that, but she knows we're in the book business and makes it, I love you, Mimi and Grampy. That was great. But then she says, I got to tell you what I'm going to be when I grow up. And she says, can I ask a question? Can I tell you something? I go, of course, Maddie, anything you want. She says, well, I'm going to be a great author, but more important than that, I got to tell you, I'm going to be a great singer. And she just starts bellowing, and she's really good. And she has a ham bone. And as long as somebody doesn't squish her and say something's wrong, I believe she will emerge. But I believe every little kid has potentially that. Now, and latchkey kids have a tougher time. Special ed kids have a tougher time. I got it. But, everyone's got it.
You mentioned Elon Musk, richest man in the world, in my Tesla, and I have one of the only yellow Teslas on the planet, as far as I know. I've got a yellow Tesla right outside. Inside the Tesla is a dog kennel. Inside the dog kennel is one of the dearest pets I've ever had in my life, and he's taking a nap right now, and he likes it in the Tesla. He's a rooster. And he's an 11-month-old rooster. And we rescued him at 5 months of age because somebody realized he's a rooster, not a hen, and threw him out on the side of the road. And he is the most dear, amazing thing, although he is a rooster. But he loves getting up on a desk as high a point as he can and crooning out to the world and being all the rooster he can be, because he doesn't know his destiny is to be less than a rooster, and his destiny is to be anything less than singing and belting it out to the best of his rooster ability.
Oh, I love that story. That is so cute. And then he loves to ride in the yellow Tesla.
My little daughter was becoming a vet. And at the time, people were thinking, the coolest thing, these guys wrote chicken soup for the soul. I'll just give them chickens. We ended up with, on 1 acre in Newport Beach, California, where we used to live, with 88 chickens and Henrietta, and that would do our little female chicken would do exactly that. And then the kids loved her so much. I said, Dad, you can't. She's dead. What are you going to do? And I said, we're going to bury her. I said, no. We're going to taxidermy her. So they still have her taxidermy. That's how much they love that chicken.
Henrietta got taxidermy.
I have a stuffed animal behind me. I have no idea where to go with this. A stuffed chicken, which is Ruru's companion. And Jessica is bringing her over now. Actually, Henrietta. You want to grab Henrietta? We have a Henrietta.
No way.
Para, why do you wear yellow all the time? Yellow glasses, yellow shirt, yellow cap.
And the decision today was between purple and yellow because I felt a call to purple, but I muscle test because I just get outside of myself and I went with yellow. I just want to share as much light and energy with the world. And my mission is to raise people's vibration, elevate consciousness, shift humanity. And to me, I call myself an alchemist, meaning it's about the energy game. That's what you're doing as well. And so I felt a calling to wear my bright and shiny yellow today because I don't want anybody, that's why I've got yellow glasses on as well, anybody to dim their light.
By the way, our colors happen to be gold or yellow and purple. So
purple and yellow. So it's like the complement. Those are the corporate colors. And then even on the new book, we brought the pink in, the feminine energy, but, purple, yellow, pink.
So right. Another synchronous. So here we have, this is Susie Q, and this is Henrietta.
Oh, my gosh.
And so we have a Henrietta the chicken. I kid you not.
Unbelievable, really.
Well, then one other thing I got to just tell you about vibration, because I own two different companies at different times with one of my great friends who I hope you'll have on sometime, Bob Proctor. And Bob says, once you make the decision, my line is, once you make the decision, your subconscious makes a provision if you repeat it again and again and again and program your mind. But Bob says what it does is it changes your vibration that quick if it's a real decision, and your vibration escalates. And I believe that, and I think you would go along with that.
Absolutely. And what's so powerful to me is that I'm into symbolism. So when you make a decision, even if you haven't literally stepped forward, although I feel that's very important, it's a two-step dance. A lot of people listening to this will go play the inner game, but never actually step forward. And you need that. But when you make a decision, you send out these waves through the universe that can't help but bounce off the sides and come back in the most amazing ways.
Right, exactly. And you need to reaffirm that decision every single day. And the third step to those critical phases we were talking about, the 3 questions to ask yourself: where am I now? Where do I want to be? The final one is, what specific action am I going to take to get there? Because we're on this physical plane. Everything takes action. Once we see it and know it, we need to put that vision. It always requires a tremendous amount of action. And so we have to commit to that and get excited about it and have fun with it. It's part of the dance.
Thank you. So I want to talk about how we can empower people today. And I'm going to go to one of my favorite places on earth, which is the McDowell Preserve. Years ago, over a decade ago, I wrote the bestseller Barefoot Running. And as I was touring around the country, I got to spend time in Scottsdale, speak with people, and got to walk barefoot. It was like 109, 110 degrees, but I trained my feet. And there is a mana. There is an energy, because we lived on Maui. There's a mana to that preserve. Now that preserve, I believe $68 million, if I have it right, was raised to save the preserve. And instead, some of the powers that be said, ooh, let's actually move the money in a different direction, and let's maybe even get rid of or sell off or do something with the preserve. And you were not deterred. You started asking empowering questions.
Yeah. Exactly. It was the most amazing thing because, we moved in shortly before this struggle was already underway. So the city of Scottsdale were all in with the developers on this. They had made this decision that they were going to take this beautiful preserve, and the taxpayers had voted for themselves to tax themselves to create this preserve money to preserve the preserve in perpetuity. And that $68 million was for that. Well, they saw, as politicians do, there's $60 million bank account. Maybe we could use that to get some money back in our own pockets, right? So they had planned this IMAX theater and all these hideous things in this beautiful sacred preserve, as if we don't already have 10 times more than we need of that stuff in Scottsdale and Phoenix, right? So we were hiking in the preserve when we first got here. We were informed of this situation, and we said, we can't stand by. We need to do something about it. Well, some of our neighbors had gotten involved. We had a meeting with them. They told us where they were at. They said that the city was there's so much corruption that the city had the city could have put it to a vote to the voters and asked people, how do you feel about this? Are you okay with us spending your $68 million or not on this? But they didn't do that. They just said, you know what, we're just going to do it. So we were pushing to get it to a vote. They wouldn't allow that. They said, you have to gather 30,000 signatures first to see if the taxpayers even want to vote. And they were sort of laughing because they hired all the signature gathering companies So there were none available. So, we met, we came together, we said, how do we get around this? How do we find people to help us? Time is of the essence. Where do we find people who will gather signatures since all the professional companies, are gone? Well, we started getting some answers. Some young people from ASU. We incorporated a lot of parties into this. And Mark and I said, what's the most powerful work we could do? With the impact we have, we said, why don't we hold a dinner at our own house? Well, first we did a meeting, and we asked for donations. At that dinner, we decided, you know what? Anyone who will donate $1,000 to this can come to a private wine dinner at our personal home. So we raised $40,000 that night at that dinner. 40 people stepped up. We had this fabulous dinner at our home. We were able to hire these people to get the signatures. We got more than enough signatures. We got it on the ballot, and these people were defeated. And they were scoffing and laughing at us when we started. And when, because this group of people would show up at the city council meetings, and they'd be like, oh yeah, oh, good luck with that. And, so at the final meeting, just before the vote took place, one of the young women who was her mother had helped champion this preserve. She stood up and said, when you first required that we had to gather these signatures, instead of just asking the voters what they really wanted, you forced us to go gather these signatures. We were upset about it. It seemed like a daunting task, but now we're really thankful to you because of that, we've been personally speaking to hundreds of thousands of people across the valley. And now they're aware. Now they know who is on their side. Now they know who is against preserving the taxpayers' money. And so with the election coming up, they're more informed. And sure enough, a lot of those people who voted to, take the preserved money lost their positions, lost their seats. So it was an amazing victory.
I love it, and I want to say a giant woohoo, but to me what's most important is you were told, who are you to think you can do this? And how many times have we each heard that in whatever position or lot we are in life? Who are you to think? Who are you not to think you can do it? And just keep asking and asking and asking.
Well, and so the point is of what you're saying. Let me give the big points so everyone's got it, and I think you'll agree with us, is that right now, everybody out there, when you start asking, one of the things you're going to need is more self-confidence. You're going to need more courage. You're going to need more boldness. And what I'm saying on behalf of Crystal and Michael and Mark, so it's CMM today, we are giving you that confidence. We're giving you that self-assurance. We're giving you the ability to have self-realization, self-actualization, which she said, our third point is you got to take the action to get to the higher levels of yourself, your truth, your beauty, your understanding, your wisdom, all of which is generated with one 3-letter word, ASK. And then we do add an explanation mark because we think the world is here and we're to ask our way out of this lockdown, ask our way out of this chrysalis into our greater glory. Would you agree with that, Michael?
I would agree completely. And I would agree that we're in a chrysalis. And that's important to recognize, is we're not in a cave. We're not in the lockdown that we think we are. We're actually in a process of metamorphosis to become that purple butterfly if we allow ourselves, if we are willing to ask the questions, and if we are willing to realize if you cut a butterfly open early, poor butterfly, that pus that you would see is not the end product. You think that all of this chaos and this mess that's going on right now is the end. It is the most beautiful beginning.
That's right. That's right. We are going to come out of this better than we ever have been. More aware, more appreciative, more grateful. If we do the work, if we start asking the right questions, and it all starts with the question. There is no mechanism that we have that is able to reveal the truth, reveal what is hidden, like asking.
Woohoo!
The chrysalis is true. We used to, on our little 1-acre estate, we grew sweet anise next to all those chickens, and we also had a garden. And it was amazing that if it comes out early, it dies, right? If you cut it open and try to help it, it's got to fight just like a baby chicken has to hit the number I remember is 800 times on the egg at exactly the same place before it breaks open and be strong enough in the neck. Same thing here. When the butterfly comes out and it's beautiful purple, it's got to come out during the sunlight and dry its wings before it can fly, and you're not allowed to pick it up. You knew that, right?
Yes, there's a key point here of if you try to help it, you kill it. And so we actually have to allow the process. And so it means that wherever people are at today, and it's not ask for help is one of the greatest things that you can do, but where you're at is exactly where you're supposed to be to grow the neck muscle strong, to grow the connective tissue, to grow everything. So when you say, why is this happening to me? No, it's happening through you and it's happening for you. And it is the greatest gift in the world if you can step back and ask, how can I grow toward my destiny through this experience?
Amen. We're so excited about it.
So 2 last questions. I know I've got to let you go. First off, where can people go to find out more and to find your beautiful book, Ask?
Yes. So Amazon.com is the best place. You'll get it very quickly. It's there in all versions, audiobook, Kindle. It's a beautiful hardcover book. So we love real books. But yeah, so Amazon.com, Ask, The Bridge from Your Dreams to Your Destiny. And then once you get the book, go to askthebookclub.com because we are putting together some really great webinars, meetings, no charge. I mean, we want to pull people in and have for bigger discussions about asking and be able to help people go to the next level. So we're super excited about it, Michael.
Fantastic.
We want everyone to go to my website, markvictorhansen.com, and of course,
crystalvisionlife.com. There are a couple gifts there. So
because we want everyone's life to be infinitely better off, and those of us in the information business understand that you got to make the ask and the decision to make the provision and to get it going.
And then I would add to that, going along to the actualization terms, is you ask, you get this book, you give a couple copies away, but do the work. That is my ask for everyone out there. Don't just read it as another warm and fluffy, but then take the steps forward into your greatest life.
Absolutely. Take the journey with us. We're excited for you.
Excellent. Last question. Any last words of wisdom that either of you want to share? This has been a brilliant interview, by the way, and thank you so much.
I just want to remind everybody that while it seems like, life is happening out there and it's flying at us and we're ducking and dodging and trying to keep all the balls up in the air, that is an illusion. That your life experience is truly created right here on the inside of you. And so take that time with yourself, get this book, sit down with yourself, ask yourself the questions, write them out. That is the most important time you'll take. It's that creative time where you're actually creating your life. This is where it's created. Don't let your life randomly be created by focusing your attention on something somebody else is creating out there.
The ask journey is really in the chrysalis, which you've so articulately and eloquently stated, and Crystal just enunciated. But the little subtle part is that you got to write out your own answers or compute your answers or dictate your answers.
Thank you. And I'm going chrysalis, crystal, chrysalis,
Crystal.
Isn't that interesting?
Amazing.
Thank you so much. This has been phenomenal. So for everyone,
we feel the same.
Giant COVID safe hugs. How's that?
Yeah. Big hugs to you. Hug.
So for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, get asked, and begin to ask, create, and receive in your life today. And above and beyond all else, shine bright. Woohoo! Out of over 1,500 shows and interviews, this one is one of my all-time favorites with Mark Victor Hansen and Crystal Dwyer Hansen talking about Ask. I recommend that you watch this over and over and over again and that you share it with your loved ones and everybody you know, because if you get this one single yet profound concept, that ask for what you want and ask at a level higher than you ever could have imagined, it can change your life, it can change your destiny, and it can change the lives of everyone around you. On that note, if you want to truly transform your life and hear from the inside, your inner wisdom, spirit, angels, guides, God, source, universe, whatever you'd like to call it, even I joke the giant cheeseburger up above, then get our new book, The Automatic Writing Experience. If there's one tool that I recommend to be able to plug in and get guidance in your life, it's automatic writing. To get the book, simply go to Amazon or your local bookseller, especially your local bookseller. And on that note, you can find out more about our automatic writing experience at automaticwriting.com. To check out more transformative shows, click here. Be sure to subscribe below. Click on the bell icon to be notified of upcoming shows, YouTube premieres, live events with me. Big thumbs up if you like this. Leave your comments below. Love you guys so much. Shine bright.